I'm ready to randomize the emission of these particles. Again, they're just moving in a very boring pattern, not giving me any kind of shape that I can use for a muzzle flash. So to control this, I'm going to move up under the Emission Control category of compounds, and I'm going to randomize the direction of my particle stream. Now, if you have a look at this, it's actually a very simple compound. If we explore this, all it is a combination of the particle velocity and randomizing around that vector using a start and end angle, and then setting the particle velocity. We're going to plug it into the execute on emit port. So we get ourselves a muzzle splash, or a muzzle flash here, except I've actually interrupted the stream. I should have plugged this in like so. So our particles actually can die. So now we're getting a spread on our muzzle flash, and if we look at the random direction here, we can start our random direction so that it's a little thicker, and we can spread that flash out if we want to over any range that we choose. So I can have a 90-degree muzzle flash if I want to, but I'm going to focus it a little more. I'm going to kind of take it down to a muzzle flash, something like that. I could even go in and randomize the end angle as well. So if I was to go and use, say, a randomized value by range, I could plug that in here. And again, as far as my range goes, we could say something like between 20 and 60 degrees. So we get even more randomness to our end angle. The other thing we could do is if we wanted these values animated over time, we could even plug this into the root of the ice tree to get the same effect, except this time you can see the randomness is even greater because we're actually allowing ourselves to animate these values over time, whereas anything plugged into our ice tree is only evaluated upon initialization. So our angles here are a little bit high perhaps. Let's kind of take this down somewhat. Let's say something like that. And my start angle as well. Alright, that's starting to look pretty good. The last thing to do in the case of our muzzle flash might be to reduce our age limit even more. Let's go to 0.05. Might be a little... Actually, let's keep this at 0.1. Actually seems to be working okay. But let's change the shape of our particles from points to three-dimensional objects that can actually overlap one another, and we'll increase their size. We can even reduce the number of particles using our base value. So our multiply by scalar node here, we could cut it down to say something like 2500. So we have far fewer particles being emitted, and of course now we can compensate by increasing their size. I might even want to randomize their size so that we have a good mixture of small and large particles. So maybe I'll even go in and say a size between 0.4 and 1.5. So we get values that look something like that. So now when I turn off, the character can bring the gun up, rest, and then start firing, and we start to get our stream of particles. So you can start to see how that works. Okay, so let's tweak up these effects so that we have more synchronization between our bullet and the actual tracers. Perhaps I'll even just reduce the amount of emission so it's very quick. Say something like that. And I think the next part of our effect is done. Let me save the scene so far. And I'll just clean up my graph a little more. Alright, let's move along to the next task. We're going to have to focus on creating an ejection of used spent cartridges.